I was 58 years old when my marriage ended in one night. Though, if I'm honest, the funeral for it probably started long before that. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the moment I discovered the second phone my husband thought he'd hidden better than the nuclear codes. It happened on a quiet Tuesday evening, the kind where Manhattan hums softly in the background, and older women like me sip chamomile tea while pretending not to Google, "Why do younger husbands get distant?" I had just settled on the couch with my Kindle, Women Who Run with the Wolves, glowing faintly on the screen, when I heard a soft thud from the hallway closet. Not a scary thud, more like the kind of thud made by something guilty falling out of a pocket. At first, I figured it was my own phone. I lose that thing inside my apartment more often than I lose my patience. But when I opened the closet, an unfamiliar iPhone lay on the floor. No case, no lock charm, no fingerprints I recognized. Just a cold, blank screen staring back at me like it knew exactly what it was doing there. "I swear, if you're another spam call about my car's extended warranty," I muttered, picking it up. Now, I'm not the snooping type. I survived one marriage, raised a daughter, buried a husband, managed retirement investments, and learned how to use a MacBook Air all on my own. Trust takes years to build for women my age. But trust also knows a trap when it sees one. And a hidden phone in a young husband's coat pocket? Honey, that's not a trap. That's a confession with a battery. I sat at the kitchen island, the Manhattan skyline glittering beyond the windows, the suspicious phone resting between my hands like a tiny glowing enemy. I told myself I wouldn't try a passcode. I lied. I tried his birthday. Nope. Our anniversary. Nope. The year he said he grew as a person. Definitely nope. Then I tried something stupid. The jersey number of his favorite football player. The screen unlocked. I froze. A 58-year-old woman shouldn't feel her stomach drop that fast unless she's tripping on a rug or reading her blood pressure results. But there I was, staring at a wallpaper photo I had never seen before. Jason standing in a hotel room I had certainly never been inside, smiling the kind of smile he used to reserve for me. I laughed. I actually laughed. Not the happy kind. More like the kind you let out when life hands you a plot twist and asks, "Surprise? You still alive?" For a moment, I talked to the phone like it was a misbehaving pet. "You better be from a charity raffle or a surprise party planning committee, because if you belong to a woman, I swear I'll..." A notification popped up, a message preview. From someone named Chloe. "Same room tomorrow? I can still smell your cologne on the sheets." I snapped the phone shut so fast I almost sprained a knuckle. My first instinct wasn't rage, it was disbelief. Then came something heavier, not sadness, not embarrassment. Just that familiar, quiet ache women my age know too well. The ache of giving someone your softness and watching them gamble it away. When the phone buzzed again, I didn't jump this time. I unlocked it, slowly, deliberately, and scrolled just enough to confirm the thing I already felt deep in my bones. My much younger husband wasn't just lying to me. He was living an entirely different life behind a screen I wasn't supposed to find. I set the phone down. Took a breath. Looked around my beautiful kitchen in my beautiful condo, the one I paid for long before he showed up with his perfect smile and his promises of companionship. And quietly, calmly, I said to myself, this marriage died tonight. I'm just the only one who attended the funeral. I didn't open the messages right away. At 58, you learn that the truth isn't a sprint, it's a slow, painful walk you take when your heart finally stops lying to you. I sat there, staring at that second phone like it was a bomb I wasn't qualified to defuse. Outside, Manhattan glittered like nothing in my life had just collapsed, and for a moment I wished I could switch places with one of those lights, bright, far away, and blissfully unaware of my husband's cologne-stained secrets. When the phone buzzed again, I swallowed hard and tapped the thread. The screen filled instantly. Photos, hotel bookings, messages dripping with the kind of flattery I hadn't heard from Jason in months. Chloe told him she missed his laugh. Chloe complimented his shirts. Chloe even sent him a picture of some avocado toast she claimed reminded her of him. I didn't know whether to cry or criticize her food metaphors, but then the tone shifted. I scrolled deeper and found screenshots of emails about me, about my finances, my retirement savings, my condo. One message from Jason read, "She's older, she won't see it coming." That one hit me so hard I had to steady myself on the counter. I laughed under my breath, not because it was funny, but because disbelief sometimes comes out dressed as humor. Older, huh? I muttered. This older woman pays the bills, sweetheart. Don't flatter yourself. I scrolled again, expecting more romantic nonsense. Instead, I found something that made my skin prickle. A drafted memo about transferring partial ownership of my condo. The nerve, the stupidity, the sheer administrative effort. Worst of all, the memo had typos. If you're going to betray me, at least run spell check. My hands trembled, but not from fear. From something sharper, steadier. The kind of clarity women my age develop only after decades of having to be the adult in the room. I backed up every file to my MacBook Air, just as my daughter Emily had taught me. While waiting for the uploads, I tried to distract myself by making tea, but my hands were too shaky and I spilled honey everywhere. Great, I said out loud, even my kitchen is having a breakdown. The kettle shrieked just then, nearly giving me a heart attack. I slapped the switch off, muttering, imagine this is what ends me, not the betrayal, death by tea kettle. When the files finished backing up, I debated calling Emily. She's 32, loves me fiercely, and hates Jason with the enthusiasm of a woman who never trusted a man wearing too much hair gel. But it was nearly midnight, and I didn't want her speeding over the Brooklyn Bridge ready to commit arson. Still, I needed someone, not to rescue me. I'm too old and too tired to play the damsel. But because sitting alone with a second phone full of betrayal feels colder than the winter wind creeping in from the cracked kitchen window. I pressed Emily's name. She answered on video immediately, her face scrunched with sleep and suspicion. Mom, why do you look like you're about to confess to a crime? I found something, I said quietly. Jason has another phone. Her eyes widened so fast I thought they'd leap out of the screen. Mom, do not tell me this man has a burner phone like he's on some low-budget crime show. I held it up. She gasped, then whispered, oh my God, he is that stupid. I should have cried in that moment. Should have broken. Instead I snorted, actually snorted, because her delivery was so perfectly blunt, it cracked the pain right open. Get dressed, I said softly. I need you here. She nodded, already pulling her hair into a ponytail. On my way. Do not confront him alone, and do not delete anything. And Mom? Yes? You look beautiful, even when you're plotting revenge. That made me laugh, the small kind that hurts and heals at the same time. While I waited for her, I set the second phone gently on the quartz counter, watching it like it might try to escape. Somewhere below, a taxi honked. Somewhere above, a neighbor dropped something heavy. And somewhere in the city, my husband was living a life he thought he'd hidden well. He was wrong. Tonight, the truth had teeth. Emily arrived faster than any ambulance I've ever seen. 1 minute I was pacing the living room, the next she burst through the door, holding a Starbucks cup like it was a weapon. Her expression said she was ready to fight someone. Her messy ponytail said she didn't care if she looked good doing it. Where is it? She demanded. I pointed to the kitchen island where the second phone sat like a guilty museum exhibit. Emily approached it slowly, dramatically, like she expected it to sprout legs and run. Wow, she whispered. He really went full amateur hour. Who hides a burner phone in a coat pocket? Did he think he's Jason Bourne? Mom, you married a man who couldn't even correctly install our Wi-Fi extender. Despite everything, that made me laugh again. Weak, but real. I suppose subtlety was never his strength. Emily slid onto a stool, took a sip of her latte, then put on her glasses, the ones she only wore when taking stupidity seriously. All right, show me. I handed her the phone. She scrolled with increasing intensity, eyebrows lifting, lips tightening, occasional murmurs of, oh wow, seriously? And this girl types like she failed English twice. I watched her expression shift from disbelief to fury to something almost protective. Then she stopped. Mom, you didn't tell me it was this bad. I wasn't ready to see it myself, I admitted. She tapped the screen. He's not just cheating, they're planning things. Financial things. I nodded, my chest tightening. I figured, people don't hide second phones to talk about the weather. Emily opened the voice memos app. What's this? I swallowed. A recording. I didn't listen yet. Emily pressed play before I could mentally prepare. Jason's voice filled the kitchen, casual, relaxed, dripping with arrogance I didn't recognize. Once we get her to sign, we're set. She trusts me. Older women always do. My stomach turned. Chloe's voice chirped back, high-pitched, sugary. She won't notice anything. She looks like she reads self-help books before bed. Emily stared at me, horrified. You do read self-help books before bed? I'm aware, I said dryly. The recording continued. They talked about my condo, my insurance policy, my retirement fund. Chloe suggested I might fade out peacefully once they were done with me. Jason didn't correct her. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. I'd been widowed, I'd buried grief before, but this was a betrayal crafted slowly, deliberately, with paperwork and pillow talk. Emily slammed her cup on the counter. Mom, this isn't cheating. This is fraud. This is exploitation. This is felony stupidity. Felony stupidity? I repeated. Yes, not a legal term, but it should be. I smiled sadly. I'm sorry, honey, I didn't want you to find out like this. She softened, reaching for my hand. Mom, I warned you about him because I could feel something off, but I never imagined this. Neither did I whispered. Emily took a deep breath. Okay, step 1, we back up every file. Step 2, we send everything to your lawyer. Step 3, we freeze whatever accounts he can access. I already froze some, I said. I called the bank before you arrived. She blinked. Of course you did. Leave it to my mother to experience a major betrayal and respond like a financial strategist. I shrugged. I've lived long enough to know tears never beat paperwork. Emily hugged me suddenly. Hard. We're getting through this, okay? Not because he deserves forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. For a moment I let myself lean into her. My daughter, my fierce, messy, protective daughter, felt like the only solid thing in a world cracking under my feet. Then a vibration buzzed across the counter. The second phone lit up. Another message from Chloe. Did she sign yet? Don't chicken out now. Emily exhaled sharply. Mom, I want to throw this phone out the window. I want to throw him out the window, I said. Emily's eyes widened, then she burst out laughing. Okay, that's my cue to make popcorn because things are about to get interesting. But deep down, beneath the humor we used like bandages, something darker settled into place. This wasn't infidelity. This was a setup. And now that we knew the truth, Jason and Chloe had no idea that the older woman they underestimated had already started tearing their plan apart, piece by piece. Emily insisted we listen to the rest of the voice memos, but I needed air. Not dramatic, fainting on the floor air, just the kind of air women my age crave when life throws another plot twist at us. I stepped onto my balcony overlooking the East River, letting the cold breeze sting my cheeks awake. Below, Manhattan still buzzed like nothing in the world had gone wrong, while my entire marriage lay cracked open on my kitchen counter. Emily joined me, wrapping herself in the throw blanket she'd stolen from my couch. Mom, she said gently, we need to think 2 steps ahead. I replied. I'm thinking about whether I want to poison him with expired yogurt or just call the police. She blinked, then laughed. Okay, well, the yogurt idea is technically less paperwork. I sighed. I'm joking. Are you though? She asked. I didn't answer. We went back inside, sat at the dining table and opened my MacBook Air. Emily organized the evidence with the intensity of someone preparing for a corporate board meeting. She labeled files, timestamped screenshots, and even color-coded the messages. Romantic in one folder, financial conspiracy in another. At one point she said, Mom, I don't think Chloe knows how commas work. Of all her crimes, I murmured, that one might offend me the most. Emily snorted. Spoken like a true woman who raised me correcting grammar at the dinner table. But the humor couldn't soften what came next. We opened the last voice memo. Jason's voice was calm. Too calm. It'll be clean, he said. Older women get tired, they stop paying attention. I just need her signature. Chloe giggled. Then we're done with her, right? Completely, he said. The word cut through me like ice. Emily pressed pause. Her hands shook. Mom, he wasn't just using you. He was planning to discard you. Discard. Like I was a coupon or a loyalty card past expiration. For the first time that night, something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with a quiet finality that felt almost sacred. My husband didn't simply betray me. He dehumanized me. I steadied my breathing, sat up straighter, and whispered, Then we destroy them. Emily nodded so aggressively she almost hit her forehead on the table. Yes, finally, a parent-child bonding activity I can get behind. We reopened the phone, searching for anything else. That's when Emily spotted an email draft addressed to a real estate attorney. someone I'd never met. Attached was a scanned copy of my signature, except it wasn't mine. The lines were shakier, the curve wrong, the spacing uneven. A drunk pigeon could have signed better. They really thought you wouldn't notice this? Emily scoffed. Mom, you notice when a picture frame is tilted 2 millimeters. I exhaled. He underestimated me. They both did. I opened a folder Jason had labeled summer plans, expecting vacations or hotel bookings. Instead, I found spreadsheets, actual spreadsheets, detailing how my assets might be restructured. Chloe had added comments like, we should move fast before she figures things out. Emily stared at the screen. Mom, this is organized crime. Well, disorganized crime, but still crime. I looked at the glowing columns of numbers, my numbers, and felt something unexpected rise in my chest. Not grief, not anger. Strength. For years after losing my first husband, I had doubted myself. Worried I was fragile. Worried I was too old to fight, too tired to begin again. Jason must have counted on that exhaustion, that loneliness. He miscalculated. I turned to Emily. We contact Mr. Harris first thing in the morning. He'll know how to handle forged documents. She nodded. Good, and then? Then, I said, picking up the second phone, we prepare for whatever comes next. Emily tilted her head. Do we tell Jason tonight? I looked at the clock, 3:14 a.m., the hour where truth feels heavier and consequences feel close. No, I said softly, we let him walk through that door thinking his secrets are still safe. Emily smirked. So dramatic. Age gives you patience, I replied, and as I placed the phone gently on the table, its screen lighting up again with another message from Chloe. I felt it. The shift. The moment an older woman stops trembling and starts calculating. Tonight wasn't just betrayal. It was the beginning of the end. For him. Jason came home at 3:41 a.m., the hour of liars and bad decisions. I heard the elevator ding, followed by his usual attempt to tiptoe like a man who'd never successfully tiptoed a day in his life. Emily and I exchanged a glance. She whispered, Mom, you want me to hide behind the couch for moral support? I almost laughed. No, this part I need to face alone. Emily squeezed my hand once and slipped quietly into my bedroom, leaving the door cracked. I stood in the kitchen, the only light coming from the under-cabinet LEDs, casting a quiet glow on the second phone sitting in the center of the island, like the world's most incriminating paperweight. Jason walked in, smelling faintly of whiskey and someone else's perfume, floral, artificial, and offensively young. Hey, sweetheart, he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek like he hadn't just committed fraud in a suit jacket. You're up late. I smiled in a way that should have worried him. I found something of yours. He blinked, confused. What do you mean? I slid the second phone toward him, his pupils dilated so fast I thought he might faint. Where did you get that? It fell out of your coat, I said calmly. Gravity really is something, isn't it? He swallowed hard. Helen, I can explain. I raised a hand. Before you do, consider that I am 58 years old. I have lived through a widowhood, a recession, menopause, and New York rent prices. There is no explanation you can give that will shock me. For a moment he looked genuinely panicked, and I'll admit, that part was satisfying. He opened his mouth with what I assumed would be another performance-worthy lie, but the phone betrayed him before he could begin. It buzzed, loudly. A message flashed across the lock screen. Did she sign? Don't forget to bring the papers tomorrow. Chloe, ever the poet. Jason lunged for the phone like a toddler reaching for forbidden candy, but I placed my palm gently on it first. Don't, I said. Sit. It was the calmness in my voice that made him obey. He sat on the bar stool like a man awaiting a dental procedure without anesthesia. Okay, he said weakly. Yes, I've been talking to Chloe, but it's not what you think. I tilted my head. Oh? Because I think you two were plotting to steal my condo, drain my savings, and ride off into a sunset I paid for. His jaw dropped. Sweetheart, no, listen, I wasn't gonna go through with it. Oh, I said, so you plotted major financial fraud but only recreationally? He winced. You think I'm joking, I continued. I'm not joking, Jason, I listened to your recordings. His face drained of color. Recordings? Yes, I said gently. The ones where you called me the older woman who won't see it coming. Those recordings. Jason put his head in his hands. Helen, I was drunk. I was upset. Chloe pressures me. She exaggerates. I'm aware of her exaggerations, I cut in. She compared you to a Greek god in one of her messages. That alone proves she lacks judgment. A tiny, strangled sound escaped him. He couldn't tell whether it was a laugh or the beginning of a nervous breakdown. I leaned forward, elbows on the island. Jason, what you did wasn't a mistake. It was a plan. And tonight is the last time I sit across from you as your wife. He looked up sharply. You're leaving me? I stared at him, the man I once believed would be my second chance at companionship. Jason, you left this marriage long before I did. I'm just finally catching up. He stood abruptly, pacing like a trapped animal. Helen, please. I can fix this. You can't fix a broken conscience, I said softly. For a moment, we were silent. Two people who had once shared dinners, holidays, touches, now separated by a small glowing device containing every lie he'd ever told. Then, from the cracked bedroom door, Emily sneezed. Loudly. Jason jumped. I didn't even blink. Was she here the whole time? He stammered. Yes, I said, and she's heard enough. Emily emerged with absolutely no shame, holding a notebook. You forgot to mention the forged signature part, she said helpfully. Just keeping us on schedule, I exhaled. Jason, go to the guest room. We'll speak tomorrow, with my lawyer. He opened his mouth to plead again, but nothing came out. For the first time since I married him, Jason understood he had lost. Not my money. Not my condo. Me. Jason didn't sleep that night. At least not well. I could hear him pacing the guest room floorboards like a man practicing for a guilt-induced marathon. Meanwhile, I sat at the kitchen table with Emily, both of us wrapped in blankets, drinking tea we didn't even like anymore. Every now and then one of us whispered something sarcastic just to stop our hearts from collapsing. Around 6 a.m., a faint orange glow crept across the skyline. Morning in Manhattan always has that strange magic, like the city is washing away yesterday's sins. Unfortunately for Jason, his sins were stored neatly in a folder on my MacBook Air titled Insurance Against Idiots. Emily glanced at the clock. He's going to come out any minute. Want me to pretend to be your lawyer? I can deepen my voice. No, I sighed. He'd recognize you. You sound like a chipmunk when you're tired. She rolled her eyes. Wow, emotional support really going well this morning. Before I could respond, the guest room door creaked open. Jason shuffled out wearing the saddest excuse for pajamas I'd ever seen, his old college t-shirt and plaid pants that had definitely seen better days. He looked smaller. Or maybe I was finally seeing him clearly. Helen, he said quietly, can we talk? Emily stood up so fast her chair screeched. Nope. I'm supervising this conversation from a strategic distance. I raised an eyebrow. Strategic? Yes, she whispered loudly. Behind the couch. She marched over and crouched dramatically behind the armrest, holding her Starbucks cup like binoculars. Jason blinked at her, confused, but then turned back to me. Helen, I need you to listen. I folded my hands. You had months to tell me the truth. Last night was my turn to listen. This morning is your turn. He swallowed. I didn't mean to hurt you. That's the slogan of every man caught with a second phone, I replied. No, he insisted, stepping closer. I got in too deep. Chloe, she pushed things. She said she'd ruin my career if I didn't help her with. I've heard the recordings, I reminded him. You weren't being blackmailed. You were brainstorming. His shoulders slumped. I was scared. I pushed my mug aside. I'm 58. I have lived through losing a husband, raising a child alone, rebuilding a career, and learning how to use an iPad without throwing it out the window. You do not get to tell me you were scared while plotting to steal my home. He flinched, and for a moment he didn't look like the charming younger man I once married. He looked like someone who didn't understand the consequences of his own greed. I can fix this, he whispered. You already said that, I replied softly. And I already told you, you can't fix something when the rot is inside you. He sank into a chair, head in his hands. I don't want to lose you. Emily popped up from behind the couch like an angry meerkat. Then maybe don't commit fraud, Jason. He jumped. Can she stop doing that? No, I said. She's coping. Jason stood again. Helen, if you divorce me, I lose everything. I inhaled. There it was, the truth he'd been avoiding. He wasn't fighting for me. He was fighting for the lifestyle my life had allowed him to have. You were willing to risk my entire future, I said quietly. You can handle losing yours. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The city outside came alive. Car horns, morning joggers, the hum of a city too busy to notice a woman reclaiming her life at dawn. Finally, I reached into a drawer and placed a single sheet of paper on the table. Jason stared at it. "What's that?" "A meeting time," I said. "With my lawyer, today at noon." He paled. "Helen, please, don't do this." Emily stepped out from her strategic position. "Oh, she's doing it. She's absolutely doing it." I held Jason's gaze. "I gave you my trust. You gave me a second phone full of betrayal. We're not equal in this story, Jason." He sank back down, defeated. And as I watched him crumble, not from love lost but from consequences earned, I felt something unexpected rise inside me. Relief. This wasn't the end of my life. It was the end of the part where I kept forgiving someone who never deserved it. Jason didn't say another word. He sat at the table looking like a man who'd just discovered consequences were, in fact, real. I left him there while I changed into something presentable. Nothing dramatic, just a soft gray sweater and slacks. At 58, dignity is my favorite accessory. Emily followed me around the bedroom like an overly caffeinated security detail. "Mom, when we get to the lawyer's office, do you want me to take notes? Or glare? I'm excellent at glaring." "No glaring," I said, smoothing my sleeves. "This meeting is not about anger, it's about clarity." "Well," Emily twirled a pen. "Can clarity include passive-aggressive comments? Because I'm gifted in that area." I smiled. "One or two, but only in moderation." Jason was waiting by the door when we returned to the living room, wringing his hands like a guilty teenager caught sneaking out past curfew. "Helen, let me come with you." "No," I said, "you'll hear from my attorney in time." "But..." Emily stepped in front of him, raising her Starbucks cup like a badge. "Sir, this area is restricted. Please return to your designated poor decision-making zone." He blinked. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm extremely serious," she said, sipping loudly. "And also slightly dehydrated. Move." Jason stepped aside. We left the condo. The elevator ride was quiet, except for Emily muttering under her breath, "He better hope the criminal justice system offers coupons." At the law office on Park Avenue, Mr. Harris greeted us with the exact expression I expected from a man who'd handled widows, divorces, probate battles, and one memorable case involving a cat trust fund. "Good morning, Helen," he said. "I received your email at 3 a.m. I assumed it wasn't about recipes." "It's about fraud," I replied calmly, "and stupidity. High levels of both." He gestured us into a sleek conference room, overlooking the skyline. My MacBook Air sat open on the table, the evidence organized neatly into folders, screenshots, recordings, forged signatures, financial documents. Chloe had convinced Jason he could sneak past me. Mr. Harris spent 20 minutes reviewing everything in silence. He didn't sigh, he didn't frown, he didn't make a sound except the occasional click of his Mont Blanc pen, which, frankly, told me more than words ever could. Finally, he looked up. "Helen, this is not infidelity. This is a coordinated attempt to exploit your financial assets, potentially several criminal acts." "So we're pressing charges?" Emily asked eagerly. "Eventually," he said. "First, we secure Helen." He explained step by step what needed to be done. Securing my accounts, filing protective claims with the bank, freezing shared assets, documenting fraudulent signatures, and preparing for a divorce that would not go the way Jason imagined. "Will he fight it?" I asked. Mr. Harris shrugged. "He can try, but he has no leverage. You kept impeccable records. You acted immediately, and you have something he does not." "What's that?" Emily asked. "A conscience," he replied. Emily whispered, "Burn," under her breath. I couldn't help it. I laughed, quiet, tired, but real. Then Mr. Harris leaned forward. "Helen, I need to ask. Are you emotionally prepared for what's coming? Things may get messy." I took a long breath. "Messy?" I repeated. "My husband hid a second phone, plotted to steal my home, and tried to replace me with someone who thinks you're are interchangeable. I think the mess already happened." Emily clapped softly. "Mom wins today." Mr. Harris nodded approvingly. Then we moved forward. He printed the documents I needed to sign, forms protecting my property, formal notices, and an outline of the divorce proceedings. He handed me his Mont Blanc pen. "Whenever you're ready," he said. I held the pen for a moment, its weight warm, familiar. I had signed marriage certificates, mortgage papers, life insurance policies, but this signature felt different. Not like an ending, like a rescue. My rescue. I signed slowly, deliberately. Emily exhaled. "And that's that." "Not yet," Mr. Harris corrected gently. "This is the beginning. The beginning. The beginning of my freedom. The beginning of Jason's unraveling." The beginning of the part of my life where I refused to shrink just to be loved. When we walked out of the office, the Manhattan skyline glowed in the winter sun. I wasn't healed yet, but for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. By the time we returned to my condo, Jason was standing in the living room like a man waiting for a miracle Amazon package that would never arrive. He looked hopeful, pathetically so. The moment I stepped inside, he straightened up, as if good posture could erase felony-level stupidity. "How did the meeting go?" he asked. Emily muttered, "Oh, swimmingly," and walked past him toward the kitchen, not even pretending to hide her disgust. I set my purse down calmly. "Jason, Mr. Harris will be in touch with your attorney." His face twitched. "My attorney?" "Yes," I said, "you're going to need one." He rubbed the back of his neck with both hands, the way he always did when he felt cornered. "Helen, please. We can settle this privately. No need to involve lawyers, or, the federal government." Emily choked on her water. "Wow, straight to federal?" Jason glared at her. "Can you not?" "No," she replied. "I absolutely cannot." I stepped between them, raising a hand. "Emily, let me talk to him." She nodded and retreated to the balcony, though I could still see her silhouette pressed against the glass like a nosy cat, making sure nothing got past her. Jason exhaled shakily. "Helen, I was stupid. I know that. I let Chloe manipulate me. She made me feel like I mattered." My heart stung, not because I believed him, but because I remembered when I used to make him feel that way. "And what did I make you feel, Jason?" I asked. He hesitated. "Safe. Safe. A word that can be a comfort or a weapon, depending on who says it. In Jason's case, it was both. You felt safe enough to betray me," I said. "Safe enough to assume I wouldn't fight back. Safe enough to gamble my future because you thought my age made me weak." His eyes widened. "No, that's not what I meant. But it's what you believed," I said quietly. He sank onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands. "I never meant for things to go this far." "That's the problem," I replied. "Your intentions never match your actions." The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was thick, pulsing with the weight of things we couldn't undo. Then the second phone, still locked in my possession, buzzed from the kitchen counter. Jason froze. I picked it up. A new message from Chloe appeared. "If she signs today, we can file everything by Thursday. Don't mess this up, and delete this phone." Emily opened the balcony door slowly, eyebrows raised. "Wow," she whispered. She really texted "don't mess this up" to a man who has messed up every major decision in his adult life. Jason groaned. "Emily, please." "Nope," she cut in. "I promised Mom I wouldn't glare at the lawyer's office. I'm making up for it now." Jason turned back to me. "Helen, please listen. I wasn't going to go through with it. I just wanted to feel young," I finished. "Wanted? Important?" His silence was answer enough. I sat across from him, folding my hands. "Jason, I'm not angry that you wanted to feel young. I'm angry that you assumed I would pay for that fantasy." He inhaled sharply, eyes glistening. But I'd learned long ago that tears, especially male ones, could be sincere or strategic. I waited. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. "Do you still love me?" It should have been a simple question. Once I would have answered without hesitation. But now, "I loved the man I thought you were," I said. "Not the one who stood in hotel rooms with a woman half my age plotting how to steal the home I built." He closed his eyes, and a tear slid down his cheek, but it didn't move me the way he hoped. It didn't soften anything inside me. Betrayal has a strange way of disinfecting the heart, burning away illusions until only truth remains. "I can change," he whispered. I shook my head gently. "Jason, you don't need to change for me. You need to change for a judge." Emily stifled a laugh behind her hand. Jason shot her a wounded look. I stood, walking toward the bedroom. "You'll stay in the guest room until the divorce proceedings begin. We're done sharing a life. But until everything is finalized, we share a roof. And nothing more." He didn't follow. He didn't argue. He simply sat there, realizing too late that the older woman he underestimated had already outmaneuvered him at every step. And for the first time that morning, as I closed my bedroom door, I felt something powerful settle inside me. Control. The next few weeks unfolded like the world's most stressful miniseries, equal parts legal drama, emotional recovery, and the occasional comedic interlude provided by Emily, who had now appointed herself my chief anti-Jason operations officer. Jason stayed in the guest room under strict supervision, which mostly meant Emily giving him hourly death stares whenever she visited. One morning, I woke to an email from Mr. Harris with the subject line, "Progress." It detailed the bank's confirmation of attempted fraudulent applications, the forged signature analysis, and their cooperation with law enforcement. Reading it, I felt something between relief and heartbreak. Relief because justice was forming shape. Heartbreak because this justice was being delivered against the man who once kissed my hands on our wedding day. Emily looked over my shoulder. "Wow. He even spelled your name wrong on one of the applications. If you're going to commit fraud, at least respect spelling," I sighed. "Grammar has been the greatest victim in this." She nodded solemnly. "Your heart too, but mostly grammar." Her ridiculous sincerity made me laugh, quietly because the laughter still brushed against bruises inside me. By the end of the month, Jason received an official notice to appear for questioning. He paced the living room, hands shaking. "Helen, I don't deserve prison." I tilted my head. "Then why did you behave like someone trying to audition for it?" He sank into the couch. "If they arrest me, I'll lose everything. My job, my reputation." "You were willing to risk mine," I reminded him gently. He opened his mouth, but the doorbell rang before he could speak. Emily, who had been sitting on the floor surrounded by legal papers and snacks, jumped to her feet like a tiny soldier. "I'll get it," she announced dramatically. She opened the door to reveal a sharply dressed woman wearing a blazer and a stern expression. "Good morning," the woman said. "Is Jason Miller here?" Jason stiffened. "That's me." She handed him an envelope. "You're being served," Emily whispered to me. "Why do they always say it like they're delivering a pizza?" Jason's hands trembled as he opened the document, his face drained of color. This is a restraining order?" "Yes," I said calmly. "To ensure you don't attempt to access my accounts or forge any additional documents." He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Or maybe, for the first time, he did. "I never wanted to hurt you," he murmured. "You didn't hurt me by accident," I corrected. "You hurt me by choice." Emily crossed her arms, and very poor choices at that. Honestly, Chloe didn't even pick a good criminal partner. She should demand a refund. Jason shot her a tired glare. "Emily, please," she shrugged. "I'm just narrating." He turned back to me. "Helen, I'm begging you. Please don't let them send me to jail." I studied him carefully. This man who once said he'd cherish me for the rest of our days, now terrified of facing the consequences of the days he created. "I'm not controlling what happens next," I said quietly. "Your actions already did." The next week, news arrived that Chloe had also been summoned for questioning. Apparently she was far less composed than Jason. According to Mr. Harris, she cried, blamed Jason, blamed societal pressure, blamed the hotel lighting, and at one point tried to argue she didn't understand legal documents because she went to art school. Emily clapped her hands when she heard that. Finally, a useful contribution from her. But the real shift, the one that changed everything, came 2 months later, when Jason stood in front of a judge who reviewed every piece of evidence. The recordings, the forged documents, the financial drafts, the messages on the second phone. Jason didn't look at me once, and I didn't look away. When the judge announced the charges, financial misconduct, attempted fraud, identity misuse, I felt no triumph, just peace. Cold, steady peace. Emily squeezed my hand. "Mom, it's over. Maybe not entirely, not yet, but the weight that had sat on my chest for months finally loosened." As we walked out of the courthouse, Jason called after me softly, "Helen, do you hate me?" I paused. "Hate requires too much energy," I said. "I'm choosing myself now." And just like that, I stepped into the sunlight, lighter than I'd felt in years. The divorce was finalized on a rainy Thursday afternoon, the kind of day where the sky feels heavy but your heart, strangely, doesn't. Mr. Harris handed me the final paperwork with a gentle nod, as though he understood that endings, even necessary ones, still echo inside the body. Jason didn't show up in person. His attorney appeared on his behalf, looking exhausted in a way that suggested defending Jason had drained more life from him than the New York subway system in August. Emily squeezed my hand as we stepped out into the hallway. "How do you feel?" I waited for the ache, the grief, the collapse. But all I felt was air. "Free," I said simply. Emily grinned. "Good, because I already planned a tiny celebration, and by tiny I mean enormous." Emily, Mom, you survived betrayal, fraud, attempted identity theft, and a man who thought he could hide a second phone in a coat pocket. We are celebrating." I laughed, fully, deeply, the kind of laugh that comes when a weight finally lifts. That night, we went to a quiet restaurant overlooking the Hudson River. Nothing fancy, nothing loud. Just candlelight, soft music, and the steady hum of life continuing. Emily toasted to me with sparkling water. "To my mother," she declared dramatically, "who has the survival instincts of a wolf and the patience of a saint." I raised my glass. "To my daughter, whose sarcasm kept me from committing crimes," she smirked. "I do what I can." After dinner, we walked home through the cool night air. Leaves skittered across the sidewalk. The city lights shimmered on wet pavement. For the first time in years, I didn't feel older. I felt open. As though my life, instead of shrinking, had suddenly expanded in every direction. And then, of course, the universe decided to remind me it had a sense of humor. Just as we reached the entrance to my building, a man stepped out. Tall, maybe early 60s, silver hair, reading glasses perched halfway down his nose. He looked up from the book he was holding, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and smiled politely before apologizing for blocking the door. Emily's elbow nudged my ribs instantly. "Mom," she whispered, "this is fate. Or at least very good lighting." I ignored her, or tried to. "No worries," I told him. "That's a wonderful book." His eyes brightened. "You've read it?" "Several times," I said. "Life has a way of making it relevant." He chuckled warmly. "I'm Daniel." "Helen," I replied. Emily coughed loudly behind me. "She's single," she announced to absolutely no one who asked. "Emily," I muttered under my breath. Daniel laughed softly. "Good to know," he said, his voice gentle, unassuming. "Well, have a lovely evening, Helen." "You too," I said, more flustered than a woman my age should ever admit. We rode the elevator in silence until Emily burst out. "Mom! Mom! He reads philosophy and his shirt was ironed. That's husband material." I shook my head, smiling despite myself. "I'm not looking for a husband." "Fine," she said, "a friend with potential." "Emily? Okay, I'll stop." She paused. "But maybe don't hide from potential happiness the way Jason hid that phone." I looked at her, really looked, and realized she was right. Healing wasn't just about escaping pain. It was about opening the door to joy again. Months passed. Jason and Chloe faced their legal consequences: fines, probation, mandatory financial counseling. Jason eventually reached out with a letter full of apologies. I read it once and put it away. Forgiveness is a gift I give myself, not him. As for me, I found new routines, new books, new friends at a reading group in Barnes & Noble. And yes, occasionally I ran into Daniel. Always with a book in hand, always with that gentle smile. We started meeting for coffee, then for walks, then for the kind of quiet conversations that feel like healing stitched into words. One evening, as we watched the sun dip behind the skyline, he said, "You know, Helen, you don't look like someone who's been broken." I smiled softly. "I was never broken," I said. "Just misplaced." He reached for my hand, slow, respectful, warm. And for the first time in a long time, I let someone hold it. My marriage ended in one night. But my life? It began again in all the days that followed. There is a particular kind of quiet that comes after surviving something you once believed would destroy you. Not the hollow kind, the kind that feels like a deep, steady exhale. That's what my life became in the months after the divorce. One long, beautiful breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I kept my routines simple. Morning tea by the window. Evening walks along the river. Reading on my Kindle until the city lights blurred behind my eyelids. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to keep anyone happy but myself. Loneliness didn't visit as often, and when it did, it sat gently beside me instead of clawing at my chest. Jason sent a few more letters. I didn't respond. Not out of anger, simply because some doors once closed should remain closed for the sake of the woman who finally learned to lock them. Daniel and I continued meeting for coffee. Not every day, not even every week. Just enough that our conversations became a soft thread running through my new life. He never pushed, never hurried, never tried to fill the silence. And for a woman who'd spent years being overshadowed by someone else's noise, that kind of quiet attention felt like grace. One evening, after a long walk, Daniel said, "You seem lighter than when I first met you." "I am," I told him. "I finally learned that starting over isn't a punishment. It's a privilege." He smiled, the warm, steady kind that lands somewhere deep in the soul. Well, he said softly, I'm glad our paths crossed on the other side of things. So was I. My marriage ended in one night, but my life didn't. It stretched, widened, softened. It became mine again. And at 59, I realized something I wish I'd known sooner. It's never too late to choose yourself.